As long as you're
great.
doing a stutter pause throughout, then you keep the wing boots for.
So they fly forever?
Whole time.
Theoretically, you could fly the whole time because it
I love
pauses
that.
that timer in towns. Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
It's a me.
And this is episode 396. Question of the week. Growing up, what was your go-to source of cheat codes?
Didn't use them.
You've never used a cheat code before.
I
You're
literally
too good for that?
Yeah, I'm too good for that. I don't exploit games like someone I know on this call. My friends had the websites and like used them for GTA and stuff, but I literally never cared to. It's not that I was scared. I like a vanilla experience. I don't even love mods in the current age to like, even quality of life mods. I like the vanilla experience, so I didn't cheat.
You're not about like enhancing the experience for yourself?
Those mods are fine. But
I get being a purist. Yeah, I can appreciate that. But there were times I either needed to cheat or wanted to, just to like see something I wouldn't have otherwise.
Skill issue.
So what did you do?
Yeah,
Kenny?
not. And so Nolan's like, all my friends went to websites. There's a good portion of my childhood where the web wasn't readily available yet.
Medieval times.
And so you're, I don't know, writing stuff down from friends at recess. You're looking up codes in your Game Genie book.
You're deciphering the hieroglyphics on the side of a cave.
I didn't do much playground transference, but I went to a beautiful orange website called Cheat Code Central, and that's
You remember
where...
the color?
Yes, it's vivid in my mind how the website looked. If it's still up today, I would imagine they've changed it and updated it, but there is a specific era of Cheat Code Central that I
hope
would...
not too.
It was so good, and... I think the website even has like CCC in it because
cheatcc.com. It's no longer orange.
Well,
it is black, white, and red. It's really ugly.
We're ruining dreams today.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dustin.
Before that, though, I did have some cheat hardware. So I used a Game Genie for my Super Nintendo, and then eventually I had a Game Shark for my PlayStation. You remember?
I remember
Game
the
Shark?
Game Genies.
You remember
and
Game
Sharks?
You're pretty much rewriting code or like overlaying code because like you've got all these letters and numbers that you have to figure out, and sometimes I was able to like create some of my own. Like, so interesting.
Didn't developers have to allow for that to work, or no?
No.
Weird that was a legal thing to say.
I actually learned a little bit more about how that works this week in researching our game of the week, which we'll talk about why that's the case a little bit later. But at a very just sort of like basic level, you're just flipping bits in code.
Ones and zeros.
Bits in code. And
yep.
I just remember one in particular, like you could use a particular code to get into a debug room in Final Fantasy VII, which was always super interesting.
That is interesting.
With a Game Shark.
I like that.
Just so many different options. If you want to share where you got your codes from, was it the playground like Kenny? Was it the Game Shark like Dustin? Or was it the Never like Nolan?
I'll call the cops on you.
Maybe you got some really sweet ones that you need to just let people know about.
Share cheat codes.
I'll get out my notepad and be ready to write them down. Hop in Discord and let us know.
Yeah, that's facts.
Okay.
Nah, dude. Like in our retro game of the week.
Was that on
purpose?
I
hate this.
No, that was accidental. Faxanadu.
Overview.
How to pronounce. It's easy. Faxanadu.
No.
This game is an NES ARPG developed by Hudson Soft and was published by Nintendo in the States and in Europe and Hudson Soft in Japan. Before we get into more, let me introduce an RPG series to you called Dragon Slayer. Sounds pretty cookie cutter, and I thought I'd recognize it, but I didn't. This was new to me. This is a series that belongs to a developer called Falcom, and the second installment in the Dragon Slayer series is called Xanadu. So the game that we played this week is actually a spin-off game called Faxanadu. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Famicom and Xanadu.
Yeah, you
merged
can't
together.
say fa and then za and not sound like a total terrible person. So Faxanadu is how I've been saying.
Faxanadu.
That's it.
That's it. Faxanadu.
But it's Famicom, not Fumicom.
This guy
I'm just telling you,
Faxanadu
it's different. It's not a direct mashup.
is a spin-off game from Xanadu. Action RPG, and I was really reminded of Zelda 2 this week.
Yep.
You too? Okay.
Oh, big time. Other than Zelda 2 also had some segments where it was like overhead, but this doesn't have any. It's all left to right the whole time.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there aren't a ton of games that there are a ton of games, but not a lot that I know of in this style. I know of Simon's Quest, I think. The second Castlevania is this style, but it's like a left-to-right action RPG on the NES. Some lore is needed up front here for the story. Once upon a time, dwarves and elves lived in harmony together.
That's true.
Under the World Tree. You know this?
Yeah.
Are you an elf or a dwarf?
I'm the fact that you have to ask is inherently offensive.
One day, in this peaceful world, a meteor hits carrying this evil dude that hops off and then turns all the Kennies, all the dwarves, into monsters who then start oppressing the elves. You are, in this game, an unnamed warrior who is returning to his hometown called Aeolus. The town is under siege by the enemy dwarves. They've shut off their wellspring that keeps them alive. I guess it's just their water source. And the king charges you with finding out the source of the issue and to repel the evil dwarves.
I think that this is more than just a nod to Zelda 2. I looked at the box art of both this week, and if you even want to pull it up to just give it a gaze, I think there are some intentional similarities with the shield crest imagery on both. I know you don't have much to do with box art in 1987, but they came out right around the same time. I think this is their attempt at catching on to the fame that Zelda was getting at the time. And so while I do think it's a nod in many ways, I think it is also, I think it's pretty much through and through like, hey, here's our attempt at a Zelda 2.
I can see it. It definitely looks like it is a shield, right? On the cover and the front and everything. It looks like it. And if they were trying to catch that wave, then that was a smart move because I think that was probably really successful.
Did Zelda 2 drop first, or is this one of those?
I believe so.
Kind of concurrent,
right
like.
Faxanadu was November of 1987. So if you tell us Zelda 2's, I think it was. I would assume it was earlier that year.
It would have been January 14th, 1987.
Yeah. So.
Okay, I'll buy it then.
Yeah, I definitely buy it now that I see those dates up against one another. But another interesting thing about this game this week is we do Patreon polls, and someone has been submitting this game for years, literal years, dying for us to play this childhood favorite of theirs. And the randomizer pulled it, not a Patreon poll.
It's happened a few times on the show, and it's probably one of my favorite things that can occur when someone's been, vying for a game for so long, and then it finally comes, but not by their power, but
it frees up Ben's submissions now. He can put something else.
Right. He was able to play along with us, and he wrote in commentary, so we'll get to it eventually.
Can't wait to hear from him.
Gameplay.
Faxanadu is a quest-based adventure, which I found interesting. You are visiting a town. You're then staying close to the town and grinding so that you can get the equipment from the town. And then when you're ready to venture forward and you think that you can, you've got enough armor and weaponry, then you heal up, and when you're ready, you venture forward to complete a quest, like the one that Nolan mentioned, your first kind of main thing is to get the 3 elven wells flowing once more. So you go to the extreme, far reaches of where you currently can talk to different like wizards or whatever they are. They're not gurus. Gurus are in town, but
no, the gurus
they
are in
call
town.
themselves that though, right?
Do they also, the people
Maybe
that
they
help?
do.
I don't know. But
I thought they did. I don't know.
You're meeting these old wise men, and they are then helping you to do this. It's also got some, I'm not going to be silly here. It's also got a few Metroidvania-like moments in that you need a particular item to unlock further. So you get a pickaxe to be able to take out a rock, or you get a ring that allows you through a certain door.
And that quality of this game definitely adds to the adventure side of things. I kind of like I won't call it Metroidvania, but I like the acquisition of items in order to progress and like go to new areas. I think it's great. The part though that suffers for me is this idea of it being centered around revisiting town and it being a left to right experience. Sometimes that felt bad to me. There is something to say about JRPGs and their style of the top-down thing where they have the world map. It feels less grindy at times. I know that's funny to say because some of those, like Dragon Warrior, are very grindy. But in terms of traveling around this game, that's where I started to get a little perturbed. There's
a decent amount of backtracking. You beat a boss and then you got to like walk back to the town. There are places you're going to run through more than once, but even that is a little bit Vania because this world, yes, there's a sort of linearity to it, but it branches out. There's maps, there's places you got to explore. You have to, it does literally. You have to figure out which place is next and the right, key to the right door to carry you on, which is nice, except for the fact that not all of the keys, most of the keys in the game are consumables. So you use them once and then they're gone, which is wildly frustrating as a mechanic.
Weird. Super different than other games.
That's not how keys work.
Yes, it is. In Zelda, you use the key and then it's gone.
Yeah, but you don't go purchase keys from a key merchant and do it that way and equip it and then open. That's what it is.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is it's not how keys work. You don't have to get a new key for your car every time you get in it.
It's also not elves and dwarves, which is crazy.
You have access.
No, those are real.
Thank you, Nolan.
The pain. I'm with you because on the first door that I used a jack key for. I accidentally immediately pressed up again and was on the outside as soon as I went on the inside, and the door was locked. I had to go back to town to get the key.
Yeah, they're auto-locking.
To get another key. It would have been better if it was a consumable, but the door remained open after you used the key there.
That would have helped, but it still is bad.
That was my expectation. Keys keep doors unlocked.
Yeah.
And if we want to use the Zelda reference like that, I feel like that was an oversight.
Well, I will say that in 1987, particularly with these, there's not saves, but there are codes that you can get that allow you to come back and start in a particular city with the equipment that you had. And I think to code every door that's unlocked already and all of those, they weren't doing it at the time, really. And so you kind of have to limit what you're able to carry through from one screen to the next, even.
Well, and there aren't a ton of doors that you have to do that with. At least not that I know of. But like just using the pickaxe segment to get the Madoc, it's not like that's all you're doing. But the fact that it's just a weird setup because in Zelda the keys are confined to the dungeon you're in and they're only used there. And sure, you can use a key on different doors and go through it differently than another person playing, but you'll still end up, beating it.
It's just one of those things that feels as a mechanic a little bit dated. There are some things that sort of, as you play, you go like, oh, quality of life here, like the expectations for how some of this is done in the future are going to change. But you're right, Dustin. Some of that is also technical limitations, and so I don't mind that, but it bothered me the whole time that I had to just keep buying keys optimistically because I didn't know what I was going to run into. if you're playing with a guide and it just tells you how many to get, it's one thing. But if you're trying to like play blind, it's going to be really obnoxious.
That's a good point because Dustin suggested to both of us to probably use a guide for this one, probably because of that reason. And I did, and so I didn't think of it from that perspective. But if I wasn't using a guide, I would have been blindly being like, well, probably need this.
You would make so much progress, and then you would absolutely not be able to do anything because you don't have the queen key or whatever, and you would have to go all the way back through the progress you made
to town
to get the key, hoping that you don't die on the way back.
But if there were other keys that you used along the way, you have to rebuy those as well. You need to set out with the proper like set of things for the area you're about to do, and unless you're like grinding your way through learning that stuff, which is how you would have played the game originally, you need a guide here will save you hours of time.
This is one of those games, we've been talking a lot about keys. I think we should never say them again, but I think it is one example of how early games do this, but this is one of those that really, there are really unintuitive triggers all throughout this game of like, that doesn't naturally make sense, or I'm not just going to think of that, or like, I've got to talk to a guy a second time in order to get his ring. You wouldn't have thought through that. And there are many of those moments throughout this game that if you're not using a guide in 2023, it's going to drive you absolutely crazy.
One of them being that you can't equip things in town, which is
you can in town, not inside of buildings.
Right.
You got to be outside to equip things.
That's weird. They don't tell you how to use magic. You'll figure it out because you've got you got an A and a B button and a D-pad, but it's B and up. What else? Oh, this is my favorite thing. Another thing Dustin told me before I did the first play was that the way that they've set up the trigger of starting the game, starting your quest, is the king gives you 1,500 gold. And if you go and spend it to 0 in town, which you can, go back to the king, and he acts like he's never met you before and gives you 1,500 gold.
So you can start the game on a much stronger foot by padding out your inventory, getting the king's money multiple times. Even Nolan, you noticed it in your first play, but there's kind of, you don't have to do it, but there's kind of a scripted death at the beginning of this 1987 game that I thought was interesting. And
was it scripted truly?
Well, it's the preferable way because you start with low health and magic because you're just coming back to town from an adventure that you've been on previously. And if you take the death, all your stuff is filled back up. If you don't, you have to heal yourself up back naturally, and you have to pay for it.
That's another thing that you had to tell me later.
Yeah. Also, Nolan spent or like wasted money on martial arts training and then whatever the other one is, which is really just refilling your health and magic, but that doesn't make sense.
No, let's call health martial arts. And he took my money twice, and I was like, "There's nothing in my inventory. What is?"
But it's only that in the first town,
right?
Like,
all of that
later, it's not.
Yeah,
using that same
not okay.
Yeah, it was strange.
Oh, and here's magic. All it's doing is refilling your magic meter. It's not giving you new magic to use.
Right. I wonder if some of that was translation, and I don't know. I'm not making excuses for it, but like, because I know that some things were changed in translation when it was brought over to North America. Those they're churches that you go to and get healing from gurus. They were more Christian imagery in the original, but because North America can't handle that, they took
they were like, oh no.
But do you know what they left? The guy that was smoking, store
every merchant,
this
pretty
fantasy
much was
merchant is wearing Levi's, a white T-shirt, and he's smoking a Marlboro. I swear to you, they're like, that's America.
You want some keys?
I got some keys.
I got your keys right here.
Very good. Okay. You are moving primarily left to right. You're seeing the side profile of your character. You've got weapons that you can buy and upgrade along the way, from a little dagger to a long sword to a spear and to a dragon slayer sword. Really cool.
What is that?
Is it late game,
much
bro?
Bigger?
You've got magic that you can equip. Nolan mentioned it. You up B to shoot it off, but like you've got just a variety of different kinds of magic that have different kinds of strength and operate differently, like have different patterns.
Yeah, which is cool.
And then you've got armor and shield. Those are kind of the main things that you have and that you can buy and equip along the way.
yeah, main things. There's also short-term upgrades you can get, like out in the world. There's passive power-ups that you're going to get that allow you either access to things or improvements to your character. This game has, for it being as early and as simple as it looks, it's got a decent amount going on here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and you're getting XP as you fight, too. Like,
right.
It's
gold and experience both are things that you're getting and are different depending on which enemies you're fighting. So you may choose to grind out a specific enemy because they give you better gold rewards, or fight that specific enemy because they give you better XP.
And there's a few segments that it makes it really easy to do because you're only moving a short amount of distance, really. Oh, well, you've got your screen, and then once you move off of that screen, you're on to the next screen. But as soon as you go back, the enemies respawn. Well, it's really easy to grind in certain areas because you can just go left, right, past the screen, respawn, take out the enemies, get the gold that you need. So there is some grinding, but a lot less than in other games around this time. It's not Dragon Warrior.
Much easier. Now, the enemies and the combat, I'll say janky at best.
Their
not
movement?
problem. What's that?
Their movement or
their
what?
movement and just kind of general NES hitbox, hurtbox kind of woes, but nothing like unbearable to me. I wanted a little more from the combat, but I don't know what. It was just a little janky. I found myself not using magic unless there are some enemies you have to use magic on because they're too short, which is fine and an interesting way to like force that playstyle out. But
as soon as you get the broadsword there, you can actually hit them with it. It's just the dagger doesn't reach them.
Yeah, the dagger's got a lot of limitations. And I was with you, Nolan. I was hoarding magic. But the reason I was mainly hoarding magic is because there's no way to refill it, which is really frustrating.
Out in the world,
There's red potions where you can refill your health.
There's also bread drops from enemies to refill health.
Right, which also refill health, but there's no green potions.
What were they thinking?
And that's so frustrating because your magic is you got to go back to town if you're going to refill it.
That would have been an easy fix.
Easy fix. And it's fine to make it a little expensive. Like, you don't want to make the game too easy where you just don't use your physical attack ever. Make it pricey, but like let me have the ability right before a boss fight to refill my magic and use that for the boss. So like that was frustrating to me.
I wasn't as perturbed with the enemy AI. They all had patterns that you could learn and figure out. The more difficult thing was my character's stiff movements. You know, you've got those that weird thing of the momentum jump, meaning there's like 3 or 4 different kind of jumps. There's and jump heights and
it's like you commit when you do it.
And there's some gaps that you just clear
make
them.
it.
And later, as you get further into the game, if you don't have that jump down, you're gonna like fall and have to repeat whole sections of screens moving back up to the place you need to be, which that could be a little frustrating for sure.
One thing I think they did well here for a game like this where you're kind of limited, and it's not a super long game. I didn't beat it, but I know it's not long. What, Dawson? 3 hours?
No, it's more than that. 5, 6.
6 to 8 probably.
So that's even more substantial than I thought, but I think they did a really good job of area variety. And when you get to a new space and a new zone, vastly different graphics, different enemies, and like different platforming sections that I didn't really expect. I don't know why I was thinking it was going to be kind of grounded the whole time, but there's definitely some platforming to do here. And I think it's good. Other than the stiff movement, it's not a platformer. Don't get me wrong, and the movement proves that. But I do like when there are sections like that in a game like this. I think it works great.
I don't know if it excels at being a platformer, but there's enough of it as sort of a core thing that I'd consider it a platformer. Yeah. Okay. The movement is a little janky for sure, but you do adjust, and you can do things like attack while you're in the air, and some things that games that really do it poorly like miss out. And so I felt the jank there, but I felt like I adjusted relatively quickly. I didn't have too hard of a time with the character and movement and stuff.
One of the things that I found interesting here, and I don't know if you even notice it, but the experience leveling thing is different here than what we're probably used to nowadays. So you're
very unique.
You're not getting stronger with your experience levels. So you're getting new titles, which I think is so fun. You start off as a novice and you move through like veteran and soldier, paladin, hero, lord. Like you get different titles. And you go to a guru who locks that in for you. So once you pass a certain experience threshold, you can go to the guru in town and they'll lock that in, meaning that if you do die on the field, you'll respawn in the town that you were closest to, that you talked to the guru at, with a set amount of money, so that you're not just screwed. You do lose some, but with a set amount of money based on the level you locked in most recently.
And your experience that got you to that point is reset as well, but at that threshold, so you can then like continue.
It is, I'll say this, it is one of the most elaborate save states or game saves that I've ever seen in a game, because that's what it is.
You didn't want to have to write down a 32 character code every time you talk to a guru.
This has its own frustrations with it, having to like kind of reset, but I'm for it. Like, I've literally never seen anything like this in a game on the NES.
It's a really unique combination of systems, and I think it was well thought through overall. It works for this game.
And I think the title thing is cool. I agree. I didn't expect to grind out levels so that I could get stronger attack or higher speed or something. And so at least you're rewarded with something. And, you know, I don't know. It works for me. I think it's cool.
Well, and the money is what's key here. Golds. Sorry, we got to clarify. This is golds.
Golds.
Right. You are, anytime that it's like
even
you collected,
if it's just one.
Yeah, it's golds. But you are, that is your experience points mainly, because you're using that and to get the better weaponry, to get the better shields, to get the better armor, and that is what's making you stronger, making you more capable. You're even buying your magic.
Mm-hmm.
Which it would have been cool if they would have tethered that to the experience. So when you become a lord, you get a different. I don't know. There's just a few things they could have done. One of the things that they could have done. Oh my goodness, it's later game, so you probably didn't get there. But there is a pendant that you get after defeating a certain boss that was meant to increase your strength, to make you more effective in battle. But due to a programming error, it does the opposite. So you start the game with more increased strength, and as soon as you get this item, it halves your strength.
And that's literally just a bug.
Actual bug in the actual game.
So do you not pick it up then, or do you have to progress?
You don't pick it up.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is just not pick it up.
Which I found out after I picked it up.
Oh my gosh.
Thankfully there's answers because of the way save states work and any number of other things. You can like reload your equivalent game with a version that doesn't have the pendant on you. But you would have to look up how to do that, and it gets a little complex.
That's literally probably a one-digit
like
bug
1
in the
or
code.
0.
Like a percentage
it's a flip.
Was wrong.
Yep.
Like they have an extra like 0.0 instead of point. Like, holy moly!
But that's a big deal.
That's a
it's a huge, and it's an item that all game is hyping. Like in story, there's characters that are like, look out for this good pendant. Like, oh, we'd love to keep this pendant for us, but it'll be even more useful for you. Like, they're just hyping it. It's got a line item in the booklet that's like, get this pendant, it's gonna upgrade your attacks, and then it just nerfs you.
Kenny, you had mentioned it earlier. I want to actually name it because I think it's so much fun, but there are some items that you can get out in the field that increase your strength or whatever temporarily. So you've got the ointment that gives you temporary invincibility. You've got the glove that increases your attack power. But most importantly, you've got the wing boots.
That's even on the front cover of the game. They were excited. Yes, it says daggers and wing boots, mantras and monsters await you. They were hyped about that one.
That's really good.
The wing boots are amazing.
It does what you think it would do. It allows you to hover, but you get to control it. So it's you can kind of just float through certain areas.
They give you Z plane access, or not Z, but like Y.
What's fun in the speedrun of this, that's what they manipulate most, because you've got a timer countdown on the screen when you're using your wing boots, and if you pause the game on the frame that it was supposed to tick down, it can't tick down. So as long as you're doing a stutter pause throughout, then you keep the wing boots for...
So they fly forever?
Theoretically, you could fly the whole time, because it pauses that timer in towns. So you can make it through the whole game.
Nice.
Oh, you'll use that cheat code?
I'll use that one, yeah.
Okay, I beat the game.
Yeah, you beat the game an hour after we found out about it.
An hour. Well, after
Dustin?
maybe most people found out about it, but we had recorded a little bit early, and I just played. And it is one of those, this is not going to be a spoiler, I'm just letting you know. It's one of those early video games with an unsatisfactory ending. You know? The ones that I'm talking about. So you just went through the whole world tree, and you saved your people, and you put an end to the dark deeds of the
evil
whatever
one. Yeah.
The king, you return to the king from the first town, and the king says, "Glad to have you back safely. It will take time, but the elves and dwarves will come back together, become friends, whatever. And then he says, I understand you will leave to continue your journey. What a restless guy." And that's the end. You walk off. You
do get the satisfying screen of walking back out of the town that was decrepit when you were walking in, and now the water's flowing, and it's like looking visual. Like, there's a little bit of reward there.
So he throws shade at you, and
what
then
a
it's
restless
over.
guy.
What a restless guy. Get some sleep.
Like,
idiot.
look at this guy.
Look at this adventurer saving us, wanting to go
more.
save other people.
No credit roll, no nothing. Yeah, it just
Dang.
Yep.
You walk off with a peaceful kingdom in the background. It's not the worst, but it's not the best.
Aged.
Nolan, you started this game and immediately commented on how it looks.
I did.
Because it doesn't look like a lot of other things that you would expect, partly because of the different perspective, but partly just because of this choice that they went to go for a somewhat realistic art style. And it kind of works for me.
So, yes, in the first play, there's like an intro scene of your character walking to his hometown on this road, and it's in the distance, and it looks different for an NES splash screen. And that's what I was commenting on. And the whole game doesn't look like that, but what did stand out to me, like as I kept playing, you get into the gameplay, the colors. It's kind of more colorful than some NES games. Like, and I even saw people in Discord saying it looked a little bland. I think in areas it does, but there are some that have like popping colors and like nice greens.
It's a fairly muted color palette, but I think that's like the world they're going for. And again, that's sort of this realistic thing. You've got these towers, but then like some of them are torn down, and I know it's an older game. There's going to be reused tiles and assets, but as I was exploring, the layouts looked different. There were parts of areas where they just would give you sort of a portion of the screen instead of the whole thing. One area that's like misty and kind of dark and I don't know. It worked for me.
I think the graphics are a mixed bag. For example, each town looked good, but they're identical. So pretty much any town you go in is going to look almost the exact same. But I was super impressed by the character portraits. I know some of them look goofy, but that's a lot of detail for 87.
They each had one next to the like text box, or most of them.
The king looks robust with big cheeks, and like it just, you know exactly what you're looking at. And then I do think, I've seen complaints on the muted, bland color palette, but realism as to Kenny's thing, but then also the story is kind of like you're coming back to a town that's post-apocalyptic in a sense. And as you get deeper and deeper into the world tree, these colors do start to come out. You've got rich blues and greens, and which again goes with the story. And then at the end, once you've healed, put the waters back in the tree, healed everything, and like you've got the pop in color again. So it's all very intentional. I think it looks intentionally done and expertly crafted. So like, yes, muted colors, but done with intention.
Because like lore wise, like it wasn't like, oh yeah, we made a bland game because we don't care about it. It was like intentional. No, I get that. And I think I stand by what I said at the beginning. Music sound like an NES game.
Okay.
All NES games sound like an NES games, but there are some bad NES sounding games, and I don't think this was one of them.
I don't think it sounds bad. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so you're just kind of like, see, I thought the music was great. I don't think it's Zelda level. Like,
Sure.
I even returned this week to listen to Zelda 2 to compare. It's amazing, like just so.
There's no comparison. Yeah.
It's also not Metroid necessarily, which it goes for a different vibe. But like, I thought the music was strong, particularly the opening track on the splash screen, just a banger. I thought it was good music through and through. Maybe not great, but certainly
Yeah, and they didn't
passable.
slack on it. By
And
any means.
they definitely did things like change some music when you had certain encounters and work on things to help that music really sort of set tone and the ambiance. And so I think I'm closer to Dustin's camp here. Really good, very good music.
We mentioned it, but I just want us to try to like just maybe bullet point a few of the gameplay aged factors, meaning the things that like are just so different or distinct from today. I said the unintuitive stuff earlier. I think the character movement is just a hard 2023 like crossover.
There is this thing that some games on the NES did at the time, because I don't think they figured this out, or thought that a player would care this much, but I super care, is when you're menuing and you make a selection, it closes the entire thing. And there are multiple panes to the menu. It's not just one menu. So you're deep into a menu. You equip something, it closes all of them. And I wasn't done, bozo. Don't do that.
Right.
So that's one that frustrated me.
Your gold visually increments down when you spend items. So when you buy a
rolls.
really expensive item, you have to sit there and watch it count down.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
they
like
thought
you
they
buy
were
the
popping
best
off with
item in
that.
the game, and you're like, well, I got a 30-second break here while things
It does
tick.
take long, huh?
Yeah, I think some of those things are definitely things you're going to feel. That's why I suggested to you and to both of you that using a guide is a viable way to experience certain games, particularly this one in 2023. You would have even had some of that capability back then with strategy guides, with different magazines that were coming out. And yeah, I just think it's the better way to play.
I agree. And I always disagree with you on this
which
point.
is
But this is one game that I think the experience for me, I'm speaking personally, was better this week because I followed a really straightforward, solid guide that didn't ruin the game for me. Just kept me on track and let me know the annoying things before they would become annoying, mainly keys and where to go next.
For us overtly trying to beat the game in the week, I think it was absolutely mandatory, and I did.
Sure.
Nice. I'm as much of a
Oh,
I'm a purist. I'm enough of a purist to acknowledge that like there's something to be said for doing the exploration and finding your way through these mazes without
if you have no life and you're 6.
Well, right, exactly. And that's what we're all
You have the
nostalgic
time.
for, or at least I am.
Yeah.
And like I love that, and I love the concept of that, and I think there is some of that you'll miss out on if you play with the guide here, some discovery, some like items that you figure out. But at the same time, you're not going to know that pendant's about to make your whole experience worse if you're not reading it from someone that knows what's going on. And so there's two sides of the coin here, and overall,
Golds.
This is one that you should probably use a guide, and I hate saying that.
Oh, come on.
I do.
Faxanadu is largely a standalone game. There are other games in the Dragon Slayer series that Nolan had mentioned at the start of the episode. The main titles of the Dragon Slayer series ended in the mid-90s, though, but there's been spin-offs, and with an entry in 2015 with Tokyo Xanadu for the PS Vita. That's the most recent
Interesting.
one. Yeah, so
Okay.
So they're still around there somewhere in recent history.
I would love a modern take on a game like this. I don't know what it would look like.
I mean, it's just the action adventure genre, and they look very different nowadays.
I know, but what if it was an ode to like the
That would be
original
cool.
the style?
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you want a copy of Faxanadu for your NES, it's
nervous.
not going to cost you much for a used one. It's only $9 if you want it used,
wow.
if you want it loose. But if you do want it new, it's $250.
Okay.
Golds.
I
250 golds.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Kenny, who beat the game this week? And it's a game that I would like to watch you play, a type of game that I would like to watch you play.
Yeah.
What do you say?
This one was surprising. I didn't know what we were going to get, but overall, it ended up being a charming and unique title that had some kind of interesting challenges. I think overall good here outweighs some of the very real frustrations that you're probably going to face. There are some aging considerations, like you'll want a map, you'll want awareness of a few of the annoying, almost game-breaking bugs. You'll probably want to use save states instead of the guru system if you're playing in some kind of modern fashion today, even though the guru system is interesting and kind of cool. You may even choose to cheat a little bit to avoid some of the grinding that you're probably going to have to do if you're wanting to get the really expensive weapons, because that piece is just not fun in a game like this. Popping in and out of one screen over and over and just killing the same thing. Like the grind in a game like this to me is even worse than a grind in like a turn-based strategy game. Yeah, no, that's obnoxious. But like, if you can get over some of these obnoxious things, a fine little story, but a game with lots of heart and charm, and I think absolutely worth playing. So, New Game Plus for me for sure.
That's one yes. Nolan, what do you think?
I think that this game offers a really solid sense of adventure. And it's in the type of game, it's in the name, action RPG, but sometimes I play games that are labeled that, and you don't really feel that sense of being a hero. But this one really makes you feel it because you've got your sword and shield, and you're sent on this thing. And the exploration here, while having its super frustrating moments with the key situation and then some backtracking, it's a very engaging game for the NES in this genre, and I quite enjoyed it. I had no expectation for this game. I had none. But the platforming elements in here really spiced it up for a guy like me who loves platformers, and it just works here. It doesn't feel out of place. Lots of enemy variety. Bosses were solid challenge. This game's really good. I'm curious what our community thought about it, but I'm definitely giving this New Game Plus. So congrats, Ben.
That's really interesting. I didn't know where Nolan would land, but I thought it would be the hardest sell for him.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But I think this is an imperfectly excellent game. I'm with these guys.
Yes.
But playing it in 1987, I think would have been amazing, and the adventure would have been times 100 because you're exploring and figuring out, and it's taking a full summer, and you're writing things down, and you're drawing out maps. But in 2023, some of the frustrations and the time limitations that you have in real life, being a 65-year-old man, can be negated by using some guides. You can use them lightly if you would like, and either some real save states or the in-game baked save states. I think both of those are viable, but having the things that you have today can make this an even more palatable and enjoyable experience today than it would have been otherwise. I'm just in total agreement with these guys. I thought this was a charming game. It's kind of a swept under the rug. I've only heard Ben ever talk about it. It's a gem, and I think it's a lot of fun and has a lot to offer that many other games of this time or since don't necessarily offer. Faxanadu gets my vote for New Game Plus, which means that Faxanadu is unanimously New Game Plus certified. But what did you think? On YouTube, 22% said yes, it's worth playing. 6% said no. And, of course, 72%, thought it would have been higher, have never played it before.
I was going to say 22 feels high for people who would say yes and have played it.
Yeah.
Many from our community played along and wrote in. Miss Muso said, I'm a bit torn. to be honest. I didn't know what was coming next. The combat was finicky. I had no idea what to do or where to go without a guide, but I had fun. It was simple enough to grasp, expansive enough to keep me going, even with some help. It's an NES staple for many, and for what it brought to the console, I say NGP. Go play.
Is it a staple?
For one or two?
For one guy?
Shane said, this game definitely has some NES hard to it. I couldn't imagine playing it without save states. I was trying to be conservative with them at first, but eventually just ended up save stating basically wherever I could, fully heal myself as well before bosses. I'm not sure I could ever figure out how to deal with the bat demons in a straight up fight, though they're pretty easy if you have some height advantage. Lots of somewhat cheesy strats like that to be found. This game is honestly pretty impressive for what I expected from the NES, and it definitely had its frustrations it gave me even with save states, but I think it barely ekes out my personal NGP status. It was a pretty enjoyable time.
I wouldn't call it NES hard, personally.
Yeah, no.
Like Castlevania 1 is NES hard.
Goodness. Mega Man.
Some of the places that you would have expected really hard here, I think there were kind of like answers to. Like some of the bosses, there were like patterns or places you could stand and sort of figure out that you were going to stay safe. And so that helps take some of the edge off. Because without that, that'd be pretty brutal.
Kenny, I don't know if you did what I did on the final boss. It's cheese, but completely in-game. I didn't have to put in any cheat codes from Cheat Code Central. But on the final boss, a few rooms before him, you can pick up an ointment. So you can go into the final boss battle invincible. And if you're fast enough, you can take him out. Turtle said, what a fun and expansive game this was for the time. A pretty good example of an ARPG for the console with pretty good graphics and audio. I especially liked some of the little touches, like how the weapons and armor changed the appearance of your character. That's always really good. I also found this game to be a fairly easy game for the time with how effective grinding is. Like seriously, in DQ2, you need to grind for like 4 hours to be under leveled for the next area. While in like 15 to 20 minutes of grinding here, you had more than enough money for all the new equipment. Plus more than enough to easily fill up on full healing potions with enough spare money to easily refill with more if needed. This game's gameplay is a bit simplistic with slashing and fun, but incredibly basic magic attacks. The levels later on could also get incredibly mazy, but overall I had a really good time with this one. NGP from me.
I do like the grinding in this one way more than a JRPG.
Yeah,
I love
so
going
less.
to a cycle. There was one section where it was like one enemy on this screen, you kill it, go up this ladder, and then you go right to the next screen, kill two, and then I just did that in a loop. I find that really fun, especially if you're like watching something.
It scratches that monkey brain itch. Is that what they
it scratches my monkey brain.
Okay, one last one from Ben.
The one and only submitter of this game for years and years.
Ben said, I decided to submit this game to the Patreon pool years ago, not only because it's a nostalgic game for me that I played as a child, but also because I really don't remember much about it. I needed you guys to tell me if it's worth going back to. I was probably 10 years old when I got this game. I had already beaten Mario 1 and 2 and Zelda 1 and 2, but everyone else was playing those games too, so I was able to get a lot of help from friends and family. Faxanadu was probably the first game I beat on my own by brute force without any assistance. I remember having a notebook full of password saves that I kept under the TV. I also remember the pride I felt after completing it, but that's about it. So, is it NGP certified now, or should I just stick with my nostalgic memories?
What a unique reason to submit a game.
So good.
Yeah,
I like
so
that.
Fun.
Ben, you know your answer now. No,
Get
this
out your
game's kind
notebook.
of goated, dude. It's really cool.
And what's fun, and I didn't expect, is that all of the commentary I read, I can't speak for all the commentary that was submitted, are saying, yeah, go play it, you know?
And it was their first time.
Right.
Most of them, yeah.
Which
amazing.
Is fun for us, fun for you, Ben. Thanks for sharing your game with us, as always.
Yeah.
And thank the randomizer gods. For now, we are setting aside Faxanadu, but we are not going to randomly select this week, but do not fear because it is time for a Director's Episode!
Oh,
it's been a while.
Miss Muso is coming on to bring an action RPG, Our Direction.
Okay, we played a lot of those recently.
Yeah,
Is it
I
Faxanadu
don't
2?
know why this is considered an action RPG, but
it's
maybe.
one of those, yeah. Okay.
Xanadu.
This one came out in 2006 for the Nintendo DS.
Oh, no.
No. This is good.
Is it?
Yeah, I like DS games.
Let's see if we can keep that energy.
I'm worried.
This game is set in the Fior region of the Pokemon world.
I'm out.
With radically different
Stop
gameplay
talking.
than the rest.
See, I just flipped. Like, I'm about playing a Pokemon game. We haven't played many on this podcast.
I flipped the other way, Kenny. I don't.
And I'm flipping
like
right in the middle.
Yeah, the DS has good potential for working for a Pokemon title. I don't know about this one specifically, but like I'm in.
Well, find a copy of Pokemon Ranger and play it along with us and Miss Muso this next week.
Join us in Discord, would you? It's really easy. It's free. All you have to do is go to discord.gg/newgameplus, and you'll get an invite where you can leave commentary and engage in many other conversations with our community. I give a shout out to Waylander for making that choice this last week. Welcome to the server. I hope you have a great time.
We also want to say thank you to Smashing Bricks Retro Gaming Podcast for choosing to continue improving the Retro Gaming Podcast community by supporting us on patreon.com as our newest patron. Thank you for your support. Of course, to our director level supporters, who we will be overtly celebrating with an episode all about you here in just the right around the corner. Brojim, Garlisle, Super Hypered, and specifically Miss Muso. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're the best. And to our many, many producer level supporters, who you can become one of if you're not, who get all kinds of cool perks on patreon.com, including producer pools and other really, really cool ways of being part of our community. Thanks. That includes Adam, Alex, Marlene, Antonin, Ben, Big Dude, Brunt, DH Bowser, Ellis, Fishy, Francesca, Gimbin, Hallex, Harold, J. Robert, Jake, Jared, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Kenny's Beard, Glenn, Knickknack, Corey, Levi, Maxima, Not Enough Dog, Pedro, Replicated Flame, Sajin, Sarah, Shane, Shauna, Psycho Mantis, Thomas Turtle, Unbedavable, Siegfried, and Zion. I didn't this week, but think that I can still do that whole list on one breath, and would love for it to grow to the point where it's basically impossible.
You can follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Pokemon Ranger. Until then, I'm still Adventurer.
I'm still going to pronounce it Faxanadu.
None of y'all noticed my haircut.
You're looking good. And this has been New Game Plus.